On a tense Tuesday night in Dallas, what began as a routine primetime debate on political ethics erupted into one of the most explosive live television moments of the year. Under the glare of the studio lights, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett calmly slid a thick manila folder across the table toward Ivanka Trump, the quiet motion carrying the weight of a detonation. Inside, she claimed, were sworn testimonies, private communications, and evidence that could shatter the Trump family's carefully polished image. If they were baseless, Jasmine said evenly, you wouldn't be this rattled. The audience gasped, the host froze, and Ivanka's practiced smile faltered, replaced by a sharpened edge. As the cameras rolled, the folder sat like alive, wire between them, daring to be opened. What followed was a clash of wills, composure versus indignation, with the stakes stretching far beyond personal reputations, into the realm of power, integrity, and whether America holds its most influential families to the same standard as everyone else. Within hours, the confrontation had set social media ablaze, sparked headlines across the country, left millions asking the same question. What truth was powerful enough to shake Ivanka Trump on live TV? It was Tuesday evening, 8:05 p.m., inside Studio 4 at the WCN headquarters in Dallas, Texas. The primetime slot meant millions were watching from home, and every detail in the room was deliberate. The gleaming desk lit by overhead rigs, cameras gliding silently on tracks, the faint hum of monitors in the control room, the studio audience set just beyond the glare of the lights, their faces half hidden in shadow, but you could feel their collective anticipation in the air. At the center of the table sat Colin Brandt, a veteran host known for his calm, measured tone tonight, wearing the faint smile of a man confident in his ability to guide a tough political conversation. To his left, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, posture steady, hands folded neatly in front of her, eyes direct and unwavering. To his right, Ivanka Trump, composed in her signature polished style, her presence radiating the assurance of someone long accustomed to the public eye. The topic: political families and ethics in American leadership was the kind of subject both women had discussed countless times before. But here, in this charged studio, it felt different. There was an undercurrent, a quiet tension threading between their opening remarks. The polite smiles didn't mask the sharpness beneath their words. From the view in the control booth, composition was perfect. Two strong figures framed on either side of the seasoned moderator. The backdrop, a deep blue panel washed in light. But to those in the room, the real picture was the invisible current running under the surface. A sense that something more than policy talking points was about to unfold. This wasn't just another primetime debate. This was a collision course, and everyone in Studio 4 could feel it coming. Tension in Studio 4 crackled just beneath the surface as the debate glided from standard political talking points into uncharted territory. For the first 20 minutes, the conversation played out in the expected cadence, polite, adversarial, but never personal. Jasmine Crockett's remarks on the need for more transparency, and Colin Brandt's sharp but fair hosting set the stage for a high-stakes exchange. Ivanka, ever poised, parried with polished references to experience and family legacy. The audience watched, measuring each line for signposts of real disagreement. Then, everything changed. Colin's question landed like a spark on dry tinder. Congresswoman Crockett, you've been outspoken about transparency and leadership. Do you believe all public figures are being honest with the American people? A pregnant pause filled the studio. Jasmine didn't look at the host for her answer, her gaze locked directly on Ivanka. Not all of them, she replied, slow and deliberate. And some have a lot more to hide than they'd like people to think. Ivanka's tight smile twisted, Is that directed at me? With the line drawn, Jasmine pressed further. Your family's history speaks for itself. But there are things the public hasn't heard yet. It's things that, frankly, cross a line most Americans would never tolerate. The studio murmured, the tension peaking. Colin leaned forward, voice steady but wary. Are you suggesting you have evidence of misconduct? Jasmine, her voice unwavering, stated, yes, and I'm prepared to share it tonight. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Electricity in the air. Ivanka, visibly unsettled, shot back. That's absurd. This is some stunt. I won't dignify it. Jasmine's calm reply, this isn't a stunt, preceded her dramatic move, slowly sliding a manila folder onto the table, its contents, clearly signaling the debate was about to become something far more explosive than anyone had anticipated. The energy in Studio 4 abruptly shifted the moment Jasmine Crockett's hand, steady and deliberate, emerged from beneath the desk, gripping a manila folder. The previous volley of accusations, retorts, and tension dissolved into one resounding question that electrified the room. What's really in that folder? Jasmine met Ivanka's gaze, not with bravado, but with surgical calm. This isn't a stunt, she declared, setting the folder on the table with a soft thud that sounded impossibly loud against the silence. The audience froze. Colin, the broadcaster, caught off guard, just managed a wary Congresswoman? Please explain what you're bringing to light. Jasmine's voice didn't waver, even as the cameras zoomed in to capture every flicker of emotion. These are communications and testimonies from individuals who worked closely with the Trump Organization. They offer a view into personal relationships that affect public decision-making, a view the public deserves. With precise movement, she slid the folder closer to Ivanka. Papers visible, but still unspread. A ripple swept through the crowd. A collective intake of breath. Ivanka's composure faltered as her chair edged closer, voice rising. This is disgusting. You think throwing around salacious lies will make you relevant? Jasmine's response, unwavering. You can label it whatever you want. The American people have the right to know when leadership might be compromised. The studio was a live wire, audience wide-eyed, the moderator torn between intervening and letting history unfold. The folder between them, no longer a prop, but a symbol, signaled that this debate had moved beyond words. Now there were stakes and evidence on the table, and both women knew the showdown had truly begun. The atmosphere in Studio 4 had become electric, every eye locked on the manila folder now open before Jasmine Crockett. The tension hung thick as Jasmine, steady and unfazed, began to lay out the case she'd spent months assembling. She didn't rush. Instead, she approached the evidence methodically, pulling out the first page for the cameras. These are communications and testimonies from people who've worked closely with the Trump Organization, Jasmine explained, her voice even. They paint a very different picture of your relationship with your father than what's been sold to the public. She laid out documents, sworn statements from former aides, internal communications describing family business being discussed at private White House dinners, an event record suggesting trips Ivanka and her father took off the official schedule, arranged under aliases, transportation secured through back channels. The studio fell silent, the only sound the rustling of paper and the faint hum of the cameras. Jasmine's hands were steady as she held up key passages, highlighting how personal loyalty seemed to override proper protocol, how confidential business matters bled into government policy. Not rumors, not tabloid headlines. Statements from people in the room, some who've risked careers to come forward, she emphasized. Ivanka tried to scoff, dismissing the evidence as hearsay from disgruntled ex-employees. But Jasmine countered, these are sworn statements. And when enough people say the same thing, it stops being gossip and starts looking like the truth. She placed before the host and the viewers a page of text messages, retrieved from a Trump Organization executive assistant's phone, describing the coordination of private, undocumented overnight trips for Ivanka and her father. Not on the official schedules, no government business involved. These arrangements bypassed Secret Service channels, Jasmine asserted. Ivanka's defense wavered. You're reading secondhand accounts from someone with an axe to grind. She protested. That's just one piece, Jasmine replied, now holding up a statement from a former event planner. Multiple accounts, different years, same story. Private events, explicit instructions to avoid official logs, trips outside public view. And it's not just the logistics, it's the pattern. Every claim Jasmine presented had a corresponding document, each stapled, highlighted, and dated. Every piece of evidence here is documented, dated, and backed by testimony, she said, unwavering in the face of mounting tension. With every revelation, Jasmine's calm stood in stark contrast to Ivanka's growing agitation. The audience, silent at first, started responding to the clarity and weight of the documents, recognizing that what started as political theater had shifted into something inarguable, something that would ripple far beyond the walls of Studio 4. The air in Studio 4 was almost unbearably thick as the focus shifted to Ivanka Trump. No amount of practiced poise could fully conceal the tremor in her voice. She sat rigid, hands gripping the chair's arms, gaze locked on Jasmine Crockett. For a moment, the polished sheen that had carried her through countless interviews cracked. What you're doing here, it's disgusting. Ivanka began, her voice layered with a brittle combination of anger and disbelief. If this is some stunt to draw attention, I won't dignify it. Throwing around conspiracies and unvetted gossip on national television isn't just reckless, it's dangerous. Her words quickened in pace, but as she looked toward the camera, that familiar, self-assured smile faltered. You want to question my relationship with my own father on live television? That's sick. It's exactly what's wrong with politics. Today, this obsession with tearing people down just to build yourself up, Jasmine held her stare unyielding. If humiliation comes from the truth, that's not on me. It's on the person who lived it. For a heartbeat, silence pressed. The studio audience shifted uneasily. Even Colin, usually unflappable, hesitated to interject. The power dynamic in the room palpably shifted. Ivanka's composure was slipping, and the crowd sensed it. Her next words were lower, desperate. You have no idea what this does to my family, to my children. You're dragging us through the mud for your own gain. Jasmine's response was measured, voice steady. If the actions of adults can't survive public scrutiny, maybe those actions should never have happened in the first place. Applause cracked out, no longer polite, but supportive. In that moment, Ivanka's power to control the conversation slipped away, placed by the raw, undeniable gravity of the truth being spoken in real time. As the studio lights dimmed, shockwaves radiated far beyond the confines of Studio 4. The audience, once silent and tense, erupted in hushed discussion, texting friends, and immediately sharing impressions online. Within minutes, the showdown between Jasmine Crockett and Ivanka Trump was already being replayed across social media first, in stunned audience-shot clips. Then, as polished viral moments amplified by the show's own official accounts, the clip of Jasmine leaning in and calmly stating, if they were baseless, you wouldn't be this rattled, became instant internet lore. On Twitter and TikTok, her poised delivery was remixed into reaction memes, with users deploying the phrase to call out hypocrisy in politics, pop culture, and even their everyday lives. Hashtags like #HatRattled, #Truth on Live TV, and #StandWithCrockett began trending, drawing millions more to the clip within hours. Major news outlets scrambled to cover the story. Spliced segments ran on cable news, late-night commentary, and even made the rounds in group chats in unexpected corners of the internet. Overnight, poll after poll showed the public overwhelmingly siding with Jasmine. One major site reported 72% of respondents believed she had won the exchange in Jasmine's own district. Her office lines rang off the hook. Constituents called in, some to express pride, others to share their own stories of holding power to account. Her team sifted through a deluge of emails, many from people emboldened to share inside information or support her actions. Journalists and newsrooms flagged the story as a top priority, launching new investigations and requesting exclusive interviews. Meanwhile, Ivanka's camp was reeling. Official statements labeled the confrontation as a smear campaign, but pointedly failed to address specific allegations, fueling even more speculation. Trusted allies fell silent, and her public appearances grew scarce. By morning, the story had jumped from political circles to mainstream pop culture. Merchandise with Jasmine's one-liners hit online shops. Broadcasts replayed the confrontation. As a defining moment of political accountability, in classrooms, living rooms, and newsrooms, a new national conversation emerged about privilege, transparency, and the courage to challenge power, live, and in public view. In the days after the broadcast, headlines and hashtags began to fade. But the deeper resonance of what happened in Studio 4 lingered. For Jasmine Crockett, this was never about trading sound bites or chasing virality. It was about a principle. That truth and accountability should not be conditional on a person's last name, wealth, or political connections. Letters began arriving at her office from across the country. A retired teacher from Ohio wrote, "I'm not in your district, but watching you gave me hope that someone will still speak up when it counts." A young law student emailed to say Jasmine's resolve convinced her to pursue public service. Survivors of workplace retaliation related to her composure under fire. Recognizing the courage it takes to confront power in real time, the conversation was no longer about two women at opposite sides of a desk. It had expanded into a national dialogue about privilege, integrity, and the unseen cost of letting the powerful go unchallenged. Jasmine had shown that preparation meets opportunity in moments when most people would walk away. She also proved that having even one credible advocate stand up for the facts can shift the balance, embolden others, and inspire action in living. Rooms and classrooms, people were asking bigger questions. Who gets held accountable? Who gets a pass? And why? The confrontation became a case study in what happens when someone refuses to be intimidated when the truth is spoken. Not for applause, but because silence would betray the public trust. The lesson was clear. In a system where influence so often shields wrongdoing, real change begins with the willingness to speak up, to risk backlash, and to remind the country that accountability is not optional. And that is a message with a life far beyond one night of television. The night in Studio 4 wasn't just another televised debate. It was a reminder of what's at stake when truth confronts power in real time. Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch, didn't fold, and didn't back down. Even when faced with one of the most influential names in American politics, whether you agree with her or not, her message was clear. Accountability is not optional. Moments like these don't happen every day. They happen when someone decides that protecting the integrity of public service matters more than protecting reputations, no matter how famous, and they matter because they set a precedent. If the powerful can be questioned publicly and directly, maybe the rest of us can find the courage to speak up too. If you believe in holding leaders to the same standards as everyone else, if you believe the truth should never be silenced, no matter whose name it challenges, then share this story. Talk about it. Ask questions. demand answers. Subscribe so you don't miss the moments that matter, the ones that cut through noise and politics to get to the truth. Because the fight for accountability is far from over, and your voice is part of it.